Yeah, I have a pleasure to introduce Stevie Rayson, and he's going to talk about identifying the best content formats for your industry. So Stevie, how are you?
Thanks, Alex, and thanks, Tim, for that first session. I agree with most of those points there on creating epic content. I'm always jealous of people who can create blog posts in 5 minutes or 5 hours when it takes me weeks to write and research a blog post, but it's well worth doing the extra work, I think. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about just identifying the best content formats for your industry, because you can't apply the same techniques in every industry, as I'll show you. But just by way of background, yes, I'm one of the directors at BuzzSumo. We're a small team running BuzzSumo. If you have any questions afterwards, just email me or tweet me anything you want to know. I'll do my best to get back to you on that. And if you haven't used BuzzSumo, we're basically a data tool. We collect data and we try to provide insights that will allow you to improve your content, really. So whether it's about trending topics today, as this screen shows, or just most shared, most linked content, you have a play with it, and there's a free version to play with. So just a bit of background about me and BuzzSumo. But primarily, what we're going to talk about today is about effective content. What's effective content? And Tim talked a lot there about the importance of epic content and content that doesn't fade. I think effective content really depends on your objectives and what stage of the funnel you're aiming at. So is it about awareness? Is it about gaining links? Is it about conversions? Different content performs well in different contexts, but also content performs depending upon your industry and your audience. And that's what I want to talk about today, which is what's effective in your industry and your audience. And it's a subject that I've been interested in for a while. And so we're actually doing a fairly major industry study with LinkedIn. The results will be available later this year. So I'm going to give you a sneak preview of some of the initial research findings. So hopefully they won't mind me sharing some of these points. But we've really just been looking at the most shared and linked content, but across very different industries, to see what works and what we can learn, what sort of insights we gain from looking at that. So as I say, the full report will be out later in the year, but I'm just going to give you a sneak preview of some of the findings from what we've done so far. So in any content, you've got different elements to a particular piece of content. You've got the topic that it's about. It might be a celebrity, it might be a company, it might be an in vogue topic such as machine learning or self-driving cars. Then you've got the sort of type of content. So it could be news about self-driving cars. It could be research. It could be an opinion about how it's going to change cities or how to build a self-driving car. And then you've got different formats. You could do that through an infographic, through a case study, through a guide. So you've got lots of different elements that make up content and which we're all aware of. And you can mix these up: how to get started with AI, a news story about AI, an opinion about AI, an infographic, etc. So we've got lots of different elements in content. And what we've been researching is, do different formats work well in different industries? So is it particular types of topics or formats, etc.? So what works in the different industries? And particularly importantly, do things not work in industries? Because you need to know that as well. So the key question is, what resonates with your audience? Not works as a generality, because no one size fits all. If you're writing in health or technology or education, different type of content resonates because you're talking to a different audience, and there is no one size fits all. So the really key thing, and Tim mentioned it, is you have to do research. You need to understand your audience, and there's also elements about what stage of the funnel you're at, but I can't cover that today. So what's resonating with your audience? If you're in marketing, we all know this. We've all studied marketing posts. These are the sorts of things that resonate if you're writing articles about SEO or marketing, really. I mean, they tend to be practical posts. They tend to be sort of how-to, ways to. They're often structured as a list format. And if you want to get shares in the marketing SEO world and get a bit of traffic through that, these sorts of posts work quite well. And we all know this. So this is not rocket science. We know this. But what's interesting is if you took that approach and tried to apply it to another industry, because if you're in health or technology or higher education, actually how-to posts perform significantly below average. I mean, significantly below average. List posts in those industries also perform significantly below average. The people in those industries, a list post with a title like those marketing ones doesn't resonate with that audience in the same way. In fact, they may objectively dislike some of that. So you cannot take what works in marketing and apply it to health. It just doesn't work. And some people think it does work, and I think that's where you have problems. You do need to understand what works for your audience. So if you're in health, these are the sorts of posts that tend to get shares. They tend to be news posts about breakthroughs. So a breakthrough about a vaccine, a new development of an inhaler, an advance in breast cancer. Then news posts about health breakthroughs. These are the sorts of posts that get lots of shares in the health sector. Interestingly, as you can see there from the right-hand side, these news posts get very few links. And if you wanted links in these industries, you would look at a different type of post. So these are sort of research posts, these are reference posts, information on essential health benefits, etc. And we can see that these are gaining large numbers of links. And the number of links here, this is just our data, just shows you the number of links from unique domains here. So you can't apply what works in marketing to health, and content that gets shares in health, you can't apply that expecting to get links. You need different types of content to achieve different objectives. And that's really quite important in your content strategy, is to understand that. Another thing we found in this initial research we're doing with LinkedIn is about the power of topics. In some industries, the topic is more powerful than anything else. It actually doesn't matter what format, whether it's a list post or an infographic. If you hit the right topic, you can perform above average sometimes. The topic is just so powerful. In other industries, actually, the format matters potentially sometimes more than the topic. And here are just some examples, really. Donald Trump, in almost any area, financial services, news, etc., Donald Trump is one of these powerful topics and has been for the last 6 months or so. In health, it's breakthroughs, as I mentioned. In technology, anything about major security breaches, data hacks, that topic performs incredibly well in the technology industry, because obviously it's a concern for people in that industry. If you're in marketing or if you're in financial news, actually some companies are celebrities. Apple, Uber, Google. You can write about Google's doing this, how Apple's applying artificial intelligence, how Uber's applying artificial intelligence. Those articles tend to resonate quite well. And then you have to find, and this is really important in terms of your research, the trending topics, the in vogue topics for your industry. So for lots of industries, it was artificial intelligence, machine learning, but it varies year by year. It varies every 6 months. You need to find the trending topics, because in some cases, the topic is more powerful than anything else, almost more powerful than your content. Just choosing the right topic is important. I gave the example of Donald Trump. We looked, for example, at the 10,000 most shared articles from financial sites in the first quarter this year. 10% of them mention Trump. 10% of them. So I know he's having an impact on the world, but 10% is really high. What was also interesting is that the average for articles about Trump was twice as high in terms of shares as for other articles in financial services. So he's a powerful topic. Obviously, he's controversial. It's potentially divisive, etc. But it's a topic which has impact in that sector at the moment. The other thing is that in some industries, what we're finding is very unique post types which work in that industry, which don't appear to work so well in other industries. So here's just an example in health. This top one, what you need to know about breakthroughs in blood cancer treatments. It seems to be, from our research, that things about what you need to know works particularly well in health. It works in some other industries, but not as well. But in health, it seems to work particularly well. So I've done some other examples here. What you need to know about joint noises, snap, crackle, pop. What you need to know about mumps, lung cancer, what you need to know about dementia. It seems to be that some industries have specific post types that resonate with that particular audience. And so, again, it's about research and understanding what that is in your particular area and your particular industry. And it's not the same across all industries. The other thing to understand, and I'm sure we all understand this, is that shares do not equal links. So a post that gets well shared will not necessarily get lots of links. And so just some examples here. I've just taken some examples from the technology industry. We can see they're all fairly well shared, but the number of links doesn't match the number of shares. In fact, the second one down's got masses of shares, very few links. The bottom one actually has got lots of links because it's about research and trends. And we tend to find that works quite well. But so you can't expect shares to equal links. So if you're after awareness content that wants lots of shares, you might be after a different type of content than one that's going to gain you a lot of links for your content. And it's primarily because people share and link for different reasons. Research, though, that last one there, those Gartner trends, this is a really powerful one. And we tend to find this is one of the few ones that tends to work across all industries. Research into trends in the future, people are interested in, whether it's in health or technology or marketing. So it tends to be powerful in all industries. It tends to be content that unusually gains both links and shares. So a Gartner report on trends would tend to get both. So it's quite unusual as a form of content in getting both. So if you're going to invest time in producing epic content, I think Tim was right about that, then actually investing time in research is quite important. It can take quite a lot of time, but it tends to be really powerful content format that works across industries and that also gets both links and shares. So that's one of the very few ones that seems to work across industries. So if we look at then how content is shared across industry, you can probably guess these, but I'll show you. So we just took the top 10,000 most shared posts for the last year, and we looked at the median shares. We looked at median, the 50% mark, rather than averages, because averages get skewed by really big outlying posts that might get 1 million shares, for example. So in simple terms, if we look at marketing, median shares were highest on Twitter. Actually, LinkedIn is catching up very fast there. LinkedIn seems to be growing a lot in the marketing space, and Twitter seems to be dying a bit. But at the moment, we had more median shares on Twitter. When we look at technology, we had a different picture. We found that the most median shares are actually taking place on LinkedIn, and we are seeing people share more and more content around LinkedIn. Health, we get quite a different picture. Health content, particularly health news, tends to be on Facebook. And we find the same for higher education and travel. Travel, particularly Facebook, whether it's places you should visit, travel tips and guides, and no surprisingly, very few shares on LinkedIn. So you're not going to really heavily promote your travel content on LinkedIn, except maybe some business travel. Financial services was industry. Financial services, interesting, a lot of news articles, which is why Facebook was high, but LinkedIn and Twitter both high for those relatively. Education management was mainly Facebook. And when we go back to legal services industry, it's LinkedIn. So we've looked at a lot more industries, but this is just giving you a flavor that you need to understand, not just what resonates with your audience, but where do they hang out? Where do you best engage with that particular audience? And it can vary across those different networks. So we need to understand that as well. And this is just sharing, some of the data, which is probably not too surprising to many of you, I think. And the future is not what it was. Things keep changing all the time. So we are seeing a decline in Twitter sharing, which is interesting. We are seeing increases in LinkedIn sharing, and we're seeing more B2B content get shared on Facebook as well. And you need to keep track of that. And just to sort of finally, before I finish up, is that a reminder about blog posts are not the same as Facebook posts, because some people try and treat them the same, but obviously they're quite distinct. And when we looked at Facebook posts, we looked at 1 billion of those posts. And actually, the things that get engagement, questions get more engagement than anything else in our study of Facebook posts, but also images and videos, much, much higher. Sharing links, less so. And here are just some examples of the sorts of posts that are question posts that get engagement. These just happen to be about Halloween, but they could be about anything. So that's just a very quick run through and sharing of our research that we've been doing with LinkedIn on the content that works in different industries, and happy to answer any questions that you guys have after the event. But thank you very much for listening.